Wow. Hello, sir. Agumad, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Can I
Yes, sir.
start the
Can you hear me?
program?
Yeah, yeah, please
Wait,
go.
wait, few minutes, sir. Principal,
Sure.
sir. Principal, sir.
Hear me? Sir, sir, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You have the soft copy of the brochure, so you can now post it till start the program. Have it with you now. Yes, you just share it now. Share your screen till you start. After you start, then after session starts, then we can move on.
Principal, sir. Hello. Sir, principal, sir.
So just find out from the principal who are able to take the because he has to fill those data.
Your voice is not audible, ma'am.
So
Something.
is it audible? It's Sir, can you able to hear me? Is it audible?
Hello, Principal sir. Now hearing my voice?
Hello, Amit. Yes, Amit
Okay,
Kumar,
sir.
sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Okay.
Oh, very
Thank you,
nice,
sir.
sir.
Thank
Very
you, sir.
nice.
Thank you, sir.
Morning, Principal sir. This is Swati ma'am.
Nice, sir.
Madam. Good afternoon, madam. Good afternoon.
Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir.
Hello, sir.
Amit Kumar, sir.
Can I start, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, one and all. On behalf of Department ME CSC Panimalar Engineering College, I am delighted to welcome you all for the 5 days faculty development program on machine learning and deep learning for data science and engineering, organized by ME Computer Science and Engineering in association with IEEE Madras section. I earnestly thank you all for the accepting out of the invitation and taking out your precise time in this session. I am very grateful to our secretary and correspondent, Dr. P. Chinnadurai, our dynamic directors, Mr. C. Sakti Kumar, Mrs. C. Vijaya Rajeshwari, and Mrs. Saranya Sri Sakti Kumar for giving us an opportunity to organize this event. It is a matter of great pleasure and honor for me to welcome our beloved principal, Dr. K. Mani, and I would also like to thank you, our honorable dean, Dr. S. Maladi, for providing me with the opportunity to spearhead this constructive programs. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome the delegates for the workshop, Mr. Ahmed Khalid, Vice President of Meticulous Learning, Chennai, Mr. S. Sharma, Data Scientist from Agent Technology, Chennai, Dr. Puan Swing, Professor and Vice Director, National Zhongjing University, Taiwan. I also wish to take this opportunity to welcome Dr. M. Kalichelvi Geeta, Professor of CSC Department, Annamalai University, and Dr. GMK Tirumurthy, Associate Professor, CSC Department, MEPCO Engineering College, for this 5 days faculty development program. Last but not the least, I welcome and extended my thanks to all the coordinators and members for being part of this dynamic workshop. I'm delighted to have you all here, and I hope you welcome simulating and productive workshop over the next 5 days. I am grateful to each one of you having shown your trust and confidence in me, and I am assured that you will blessed my end of results. Now I request our honorable principal, Dr. K. Mani, to welcome of the resource person on behalf of the Panimalar Engineering College.
Thank you, Amit Kumar, sir. Good afternoon to all of you. So, the Department of Computer Science and Engineering of Panimalar Engineering College organizing 5 days FDP on machine learning and deep learning, particularly the faculty members of the PG program, in association with the IEEE Madras section and the Computer Society of India. So during this lockdown period, many such kind of programs, FDP programs and webinar for 1 hour are organized by many colleges for the benefit of the students and the teachers. So in this period, so all students are attending the online classes and also all teachers are taking online classes. So during the free time, so the students, both the teachers and research scholars can attend these type of specific programs because particularly this program, 1 week program has applications in all the fields, not only in computer science and engineering. So this 1 week program will be much more useful to all the field, all the domain people. So I request all the participants to attend all the 5 days fully. So don't attend just switch on your mobile phone or your system, and you have to be very attentive so that you can update the knowledge in this domain. And during this 5 days program, all the resource persons are really experts in this area. So I request all the participants to attend, and at the end of the session, you clarify your doubts with the experts. And wish you all the best. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. And now I call upon Professor Saraswati ma'am to deliver about the resource person.
Good afternoon, all of you. I warmly welcome you for this FTP program. More speeches than you can imagine are doomed to fail by bad introductions. Instead of kindly fires of enthusiasm within the audience, the introductions lead to an epidemic outbreak of brain freeze. Here I am very happy to read Mr. Hamid Khalid sir profile. Mr. Hamid is an IIM Bangalore alum with over 12 years of experience in training sales, marketing and business development across different domains. Currently, he is an vice president of Imatius Learning. Being an automobile engineer from MIT, he started his career with Bajaj Auto Limited. He started his entrepreneur journey by setting up his own training firm which was acquired by a renowned company. He was then the country head of sales with Talent Sprint and helped them expand their market to 10 different states. Once again, I warmly welcome to this faculty development program. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Agamal, sir, please kindly you take the session.
Sure, thank you. I'll just share my screen and please give a confirmation if it is visible. Is my screen visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. A very good afternoon, Manana. Thank you so much for taking your time out and joining the session. I would like to thank the management of Panimalar Institutions, principal, dean, HOD ma'am, as well as Professor Ambed Kumar for giving us this opportunity to address you. So the next 1.5 hours of session, I'll be giving you an introduction to machine learning and deep learning. And I will take you through also a small introduction with respect to data analytics, because this is a machine learning or deep learning is a continuation of data analytics. So you will be getting an overview about all these topics. And I also believe that the next 4 days, you will be able to get more on the hands-on experiences about different topics in machine learning and deep learning. All right, so in case you have any questions during the session, please utilize the chat box and I'll be happy to take out your questions. You can utilize the question and answer box as well. All right, so we'll start now. To give a brief introduction about Ematicus before I proceed with the session. We started Ematicus in the year 2012, headquartered in Mumbai, and we are very focused on the two major domains. One is the financial services sector and the other is the data science sector. When it comes to data science, we started in year of 2016. That is where when we initially came into data science sector, and it was very early days of data science as well. And we're very few players in the industry at 2016, and we successfully have run around almost around 300 plus batches so far across the country for training different professionals on the data science segment. From 2012 in Mumbai, we also expanded rapidly to other locations across the country. To give a brief, in north, we are present in about Chandigarh and Lucknow, and till Coimbatore in the south. We are there in about 14 different cities across the country. We also have a very good global presence, wherein we are present in African countries, we are present in Middle East, we're in Dubai, as well as we are also there in Southeast Asian countries as well. And we are fast expanding to other countries as we speak on this. We have trained close to about 35,000 odd candidates. Almost like 80% of them are working professionals, right from 3 years to 30 years of industry experience. And the remaining 20-30% are from the graduates passing out of colleges. We have also partnered with about 500 odd firms across the globe, wherein they regularly work with us to create the content, curriculum, case studies, projects, etc. Plus, they also hire candidates who are being trained by Ematicus on the analytics spectrum. So some of the partners, and to be very frank, each of our program is also in partnership with some of the corporates over here. So if we look at it, data science is in partnership with KPMG, machine learning and deep learning. The topic for the day, we have partnered with IBM. And we also partner with different, for example, for our AI and artificial intelligence and analytics program, we have partnered with UCLA, which is University of California as well. So these are some of the partnerships which Imarticus has, along both with the international universities as well as with the corporate firms as well. Right. So that's it about it. So let us get into the session. I do not want to take much of your time in addressing about Imarticus. So let us talk about data analytics to begin with, right? So what is data analytics? So in a very simple layman's explanation, data analytics is nothing but analyzing a data set for a problem statement, right? So it's a very simple, basic explanation. Once again, I repeat it, it is analyzing a data set for a problem statement. Now, why do we need it? Because the industry is moving towards data-driven decision making. So when we wanted to take all our decisions based on the data, we need to analyze this data. Right? So that is where data analytics comes into the prominence. Now I will just walk you through different processes that is involved in data analytics, and after that I will also give you a real-time example or case study with respect to data analytics. So if we talk about the process that is involved, the process flow in data analytics, the very first process is what we call it as the data collection process. So what are you doing? Like, we need to collect the data. Remember this, whenever I talk about data, data is not just about text or numbers. It could be of any format, right? It could be images, it could be audios, videos, or any format it can be, right? So when we collect the data, this data will be in an unstructured format. And the next step is to format this data into a structured format, right? So that is the next step, which we call it as the data formatting process. What we are doing in this process, so different names are given in the industry for this particular process. Somebody might use data pre-planning, data preparation, data wrangling, data formatting, or in core technical terms, we use something called as explorative data analysis, right? So different names are used for this process. But at the end of the day, what are we doing on an thing? We are just collecting or making the unstructured data to a structured format, which is ready for our analysis. Once you do that, you get a nice clean data set with you, right? You have collected the data, you have formatted the data is now ready for analysis, right? So then we wanted to go and do the analytics part of it. So when we talk about analytics, the problem here is that we cannot do any analysis without any problem statement, right? Now I got the data, but what do I do with the data? So I need to have some problem statement so that I can work on that particular data set to solve the problem statement, right? So basically, very important part of data analytics is the problem statement. What is the problem statement I'm going to do? Now, what kind of problem statements can we take? For example, as a business, right? Let's take a small retail business as an example. Now, what are the products should I launch, right? That is a problem statement. What should be the price of my product? Why is my business running in loss? What should I do to make it profitable? What will be my sales in the next year? Right? So every single question, these are called as problem statements, correct? So what do? When I get a problem statement like this, I need to dig deeper into the data set and I need to find solutions for the problem statement, right? So this is basically the data analytics part of it. Once you do that, you need to now present this analysis to your customer or to your client or to your business or to somebody, right? Because you cannot do much with the core analysis part, right? Probably at the end of the day, these faculties, you might have to publish these analysis in some journals, right? So all these requires your data to be visualized, right? So that is where we are coming to the final process in this, which we call it as the data visualization process, wherein you are making nice, attractive charts or images, infographics, what we call it, so that to make it more visually pleasing to the eye. So this is basically called as the processes that is involved in data analytics, right? So if you have any questions, please put it out on the question and answer box or on the chat box. I'm happy to take it from. All right. Okay. So let's move on to the next thing. So what I'll do is that I will just walk you through a case study in analytics so that you will be understanding what is the job of a data analyst in the industry, right? So before we get into, I always approach it in this way, wherein I wanted to always the faculties or anybody to approach this data science in an industry perspective. So what is the job of a data analyst in the industry, right? So let me give you an example with respect to this. So today I've taken an example in healthcare. Of course, data analytics is used in every single industry today, right? You talk about any domain, any industry today below the sky, aviation, or could be healthcare, banking, financial sector, or telecom, energy, media, e-commerce, any platform, any industry, everybody uses data analytics today, right? So I've taken a simple example with respect to healthcare as an example so that you will be able to understand it or relate to it better in today's situation. So we are all there in a COVID-19 pandemic situation. Because of this, there is lockdowns, and because of this, we are got adapted to a lot of stuff, taking classes online, taking webinars online, etc. So there was an interesting question in one of my sessions that, can you tell us, like, how analytics is used in COVID-19 situations, right? Can we say that analytics is used in COVID-19 or this coronavirus as well? So let me give you an example on that. So what I've taken is, first thing is that what is the first process I told you, which is the data collection process, right? So what I've taken is that I've taken the data of all the COVID cases in India. So if you all remember, the very first case of COVID was on January 30th, and we had 20-year-old female from Thrissur, Kerala, got affected by COVID, right? So this was the very first case, and as on yesterday, we got around 42 lakhs of cases, right? So we overtook Brazil, and we became the second country to have the highest number of COVID cases, right? So what I have with me here is the data of all the COVID cases across the country. Till yesterday, we had 42 lakhs of data. Since I'm not able to show it to you 42 lakh cases, I just showed you a screenshot of what is there. All right. So now I got the data set ready. The next step is the data formatting process. So I will do a lot of formatting using that. I've done that. So what does the formatting mean, right? So for example, there will be some missing data in your data set, right? Now, for example, if you just look at it, right? Just look at here. Now, there are some missing values. So now, for example, let's like this, right? Now, my problem statement needs me to analyze it, or the COVID cases on age categories, right? Age-wise, how are the impacts, etc. stuff. When I wanted to do that, if you look at the ages, you see that there are a lot of missing values in this, right? So similarly, if you see this, a lot of people's ages are same. It cannot be, right? It is not possible. It means there are some mistakes in this, right? So they have not collected the age. So by default, they have assumed that everybody is 55, etc. So like this, you will have a lot of issues with the data set. Right now, for example, if I'm going to start my analysis now, then I have all these issues. Without addressing all these issues, my analytics will not be accurate, correct? So that is exactly what, when we call it as exploratory data analysis or data formatting, this is exactly we do, right? What do we do with repeated values, right? These are wrong values. Or what do we do with missing values? What should I do with some outliers? So all these questions needs to be answered on the data formatting stage, right? So you're clear now, right? Okay, so now we have done that, and we got a nice clean data set on our hand, assuming that. Next question is that, what is the problem statement? Because if we want to start doing any analysis, I've already told you what we need. We need a problem statement to start the analysis, right? So what can be that problem statement? So look at it. The problem statement here states that, can you predict the cases for future, right? Okay, can we predict the cases for future? Now, why should I predict the cases for future, right? Because this is a problem statement, good, but why should I predict the cases for future? Because only then the government will be able to get answers to a lot of its questions, right? How many testing kits needs to be ordered? how many hospital beds needs to be ready, how many doctors needs to be there, how many ventilators need to be there, should we extend the lockdown or not? Every single question you will get answer only if you know how many cases are going to be there in the future, right? You all agree, right? So that is why this particular problem statement is very, very important, right? Predicting the cases for future is very, very important for all these questions to be answered. So now, what do? That is where you're going to do the data analysis. We got the problem statement. There is a data set. So what do? We will go dig deeper into the data set and we will start finding solutions for that. Okay, so we will apply statistical models. We will do Python codings or R codings, etc., and we are doing it. I'm not going to get into the process today. It's an introductory session. Hopefully, you will be learning many things in the next 4 days on this. All right. So I'll just show you the output of it. Now, from our analysis, what it says is that as on yesterday, it means we have 4.2 million cases, and we have taken doubling rate as a model to find out the number of cases in the future. And what the doubling rate model says is that we are doubling every 29 days as on yesterday, right? As on yesterday, we are doubling every 29 days. Take it like 30 days, which is a month, right? So what it says is that as on yesterday, the current cases are 42 lakhs, and doubling at 29 days, it means that by October 6th, right? We are on September 7th today. By October 6th, you will have 84 lakhs of cases in India. That's a huge, huge number. Right? Trust me, what happened in 7 months, it took for us, right? It took 7 months for us to reach 42 lakh cases. And in next 30 days, 29 days, we are going to clock another 42 lakhs of cases, right? And if we go at this rate, we will become the #1 country in terms of COVID cases in the world, right? Okay, so what do we do with this? That is the government's job to decide, right? We are not in that position. We are data analysts. What is the job of us? We can just predict using prediction modeling. We can predict the cases for the future, right? So our prediction modeling says that at this current rate, we are going to double at 29 days. Okay, and if you look at it, right, even it says like this, right? From 2.2 million, we have become 4.2, almost doubled from 6th August to 6. In 1 month, we have doubled already, and we are maintaining the same rate of doubling. If we're going to maintain the same rate, we're going to become 8.4 million cases, which is about 84 lakh cases by October 6th, right? So now if I can do the prediction for the whole country, I can also do the prediction for state-wise, right? See, look at it. So basically, we can also do the state-wise prediction as well. I believe that people from other states are also there in this webinar. So you can see for different states and what is their doubling rate. So our country as a whole is doubling at 29 days. It means that lower the number, better you are, correct? So if we talk, for example, take Delhi. So Delhi is doubling at 64 days, which means it is far better than any other state currently, right? And then you have Gujarat, then you have Tamil Nadu, then Rajasthan, etc. These are in better than national average, right? And if we talk about Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Puducherry, Tripura, etc., the numbers are comparatively worse than the national average, right? So you can do this even to district-wise as well, right? Because the data what we have having district-wise data, so I can also make the prediction for district-wise as well, right? And look at it, like, you know, we are not talking about flattening the curve, right? So if I am going to plot the active cases on a daily basis, you will be able to know whether the curve is flattening or not, right? So if you look at it, Maharashtra, for example, that curve is nowhere close to flattening, right? Or most of the states, if you look at it, the curve is nowhere close to flattening or anything like that, right? So this particular thing is called as data visualization, because I would have just presented my analysis in coding or in Python code or in a Jupyter notebook or somewhere, right? You will not understand it better. When I am presenting it in a nice chart like this, right, you are able to understand, yes, whether the curve is flattening. I would have even simply presented it in an Excel sheet, right? Every day I can put day-wise data and put some numbers, but on just looking at it, you will not be able to understand that better. correct? Whether the curve is flattening or not flattening. But when you look at it as a chart, when you look at it visually, it looks very, very understandable, right? So that is why data visualization is also very, very important as the data analysis purposes. All right, so that's it about data analytics. I've just given you one case study with respect to COVID-19. Now you can take any data set like this, right? For example, let's talk about stock markets, and you can talk about if I'm going to give you stock market data, you are going to see that whether we can predict the stock movements up or down, etc. Right? Similarly, sports data, cricket data. I have, for example, we can do with IPL data to predict who's going to be the winner, who's going to be the best performance, etc., etc. So a lot of such predictions can be done, or we can do any modeling using the data set. Clear? Any questions? As of now, I couldn't see any questions. If any questions you have, please put it out on the chat box. Happy to take it. All right. Fine. So let's talk about artificial intelligence now. Again, what is artificial intelligence? A very layman's term. Artificial intelligence is nothing but if a machine or a system can perform the task of a human being, then we are going to call that as an artificial intelligence system. Very simple definition, right? If a machine or a system can perform the task of a human intelligence, right? Then we are going to call that as an artificial intelligence system. Okay, right. Fine. So let me take a couple of questions before I get inside. There is a couple of questions that have come in. The one is that, sir, how to get the data set of the problem statement? How to get the data set of the problem statement? Ideally, again, as I said, it depends on your problem statement. Most of the time, if you are doing it for example, let's take for research, you do collect the data, correct? So you can collect the data set for that. Sometimes if you are working in a company, for example, right, the company provides you the data set when they give you the problem statement. So the data set, again, it depends on what data set or what is the problem statement that you are going to work on. Hemachandran has asked how to fill the missing data in the Excel sheet. It's not just Excel, any data set. There are a lot of procedures involved in that. In fact, that could be another 3-4 hours of session if I'm going to go into that, called exploratory data analysis, right? What should we do if it is a missing data? Should I put the default value? Should I put the average value? Should I completely ignore the rows and the entire data for that? All those things are questions which you will be getting this when you are learning about exploratory data analysis. It's a very, very long topic. I really don't want to get into it now. Okay, Joseph has asked, will data collection comes before or after problem statement? See, data collection is, again, it depends, right? If I'm a company, I will give you the data set, and along with that, I'll give you the problem statement, right? Now, let's take, for example, take a research area, right? Now, the problem statement comes before you go and then collect the data set, and then you work on the problem statement, right? So ideally, plus or minus here or there, it depends on the problem statement at the end of the day. All right. Okay. So thanks for your questions, guys. Keep it coming so that you'll be learning it more. And let's talk about artificial intelligence. Once again, I repeat, a system or a machine, if it can replicate human intelligence, we are going to call that as an artificial intelligence system, right? Okay. Let me give some examples. Before we go into that, let's see that, okay, what are these human intelligence we are talking about, right? Of course, human beings are capable or intelligent enough for so many things. What are we talking about? Let's talk about some of the human intelligence here, right? Now, human beings can interpret data for decisions, agreed, right? Human beings can communicate with people. That is one of the intelligence, right? Communicating with people, identifying patterns in data, adapting to new situations, right? Again, another important parameter for a human intelligence, right? 3 months back, we have not heard about what is a pandemic itself, right? Today, we have got completely adapted to it. 6 months later, or even before that, we have got completely adapted to the pandemic today, right? We started wearing masks, we started using sanitizers, we started taking online sessions, etc., etc. So adapting to new situations is another human intelligence as well. Now, what did I tell you that if a machine or a system can do any one of this part, right? See, I'm just giving you a few examples here. There can be multiple human intelligence like this. So if a system or a machine can do any of this, we're going to call that as a artificial intelligence system, right? So look at it like this. Now, for example, you would have heard about this Alexa, right? Amazon's voice assistant, what we call it as Alexa, or you have something like Siri in your iPhone, or your OK Google in your Android phones, or you have different AI assistants, right? So what do? You ask a question to that, right? Hey, Alexa, what's the temperature in Chicago? And what happens immediately there? Your voice commands get converted to binary commands, gets processed in the Amazon server, and then you get an output, which is basically a voice output, right? The current temperature in Chicago is 6 degrees Fahrenheit. So if I'm asking you a question like, what is Alexa doing here? Right? It's very simple, right? Your Alexa is actually communicating with people. Do you all agree, right? What is Alexa doing here? It is communicating with people, right? You are asking a question, Alexa is responding to you, right? You are saying, hey, Alexa, can you play a song for me? Alexa will play a song for you. So basically, it is communicating with you, and communicating with people is a human intelligence, correct? So when a machine, which is in this case your Alexa, is doing it, or your Siri or whatever, we are calling that as an artificial intelligence system. Clear, guys? It's very simple, right? What is artificial intelligence, etc., right? Any system or a machine, if it replicates human intelligence, we are going to call that as an artificial intelligence system. Clear? Okay. So now, when it comes to artificial intelligence, there are multiple branches to artificial intelligence. Okay. So if you talk about it, machine learning is one branch of it, right? Similarly, we have, for example, NLP, right? Natural language processing, expert system, computer vision, speech recognition, robotics, all are different branches of artificial intelligence. Okay, and in that today or in the next 5 days, all you're going to see is about just one branch of it, right? So we are only going to see about machine learning, deep learning, and stuff like that. But remember this, all other branches are also equally important in parts of AI system. Okay, right. So let us talk about machine learning now. So AI, artificial intelligence, I already gave you what is an example of artificial intelligence definition of it, right? So what is a machine learning then? If a machine or a system learns from the data and performs a task, any task, okay? Don't think that I'm boring you too much with definitions, but this is important before we step into the examples, right? So machine learning is nothing but your machine or a system is learning from its data and performing a task. That is called as machine learning system. Now, remember this, I already told you, machine learning is a branch of AI, correct? It's a subset of AI. Similarly, deep learning is a subset of machine learning. Okay, so deep learning is a subset of machine learning. And what is deep learning? So as it is a subset of machine learning, deep learning also does the same thing, right? It learns from the data, performs a task, but it uses something called neural networks. We will see going forward what is a neural network, etc. It uses something called neural networks with multiple layers. So that is what we call it as deep learning system. So that's the difference between machine learning and deep learning. So let me take you through some real-time examples so that you will be understanding about machine learning better, right? Let us talk about this application called Ola or Uber, right? I believe that every one of you might be using any one of these applications or would have already used it, right? So now let's look at it as what are the inputs that we are giving here, right? So basically what is it doing? You are giving a pickup location, you are giving drop location, and you are selecting a car. Now, when you do this, Ola is giving you price as the output, correct? So basically, you are giving three input data. One is a pickup location, drop location, and your car selection. Ola is giving you price. My question is simple, right? Now, when you give a pickup location is your home, right? Drop location is your college, and your car is micro. Let's talk about micro here, right? Now, remember this, every day you are doing this in morning, right? You are home, you want to go to college, you are booking your cab, right? So every day, let's assume that you are going to do this on every day. What happens to the price? Will the price be same or the price will be different every day, right? My question is simple, whether the price will be same or different, right? So every day, the price is going to be different. Now, have you thought about it? Why is it different? Right? It should be same, right? See, I believe you are all from computer science background, if you are, right? So ideally, what is the thing in a very basic software rule is what? The thumb rule is very simple. If your input is same, your output has to be same. To write any coding, you provide an input, output has to be same, correct? But when it comes to your Ola application, just think about it. You have given an input, 3 inputs you have provided there every day, but your price is different, right? So the output is coming differently. So what exactly is happening on the back end, right? So basically, your Ola application is considering a lot of other parameters before deciding on the price part of it. Correct? You all agree? What are the parameters? You can talk about a lot of parameters like traffic, cab availability, distance of the cab, either raining or not raining, right? Weekday, weekend, peak or non-peak hour, petrol, diesel price. So many parameters are considered, correct, by your Ola application, and it learns from all these data parameters, right? Your Ola application learns from all these data parameters, and then it gives you an output, which is the price output. That's why your price is different every single day, every single time, even though your pickup location is same, drop location is same, and your car is same. Correct? So this is basically because it works on something called as machine learning algorithm. So what is machine learning? The machine is learning from different data parameters and it performs a task. The task here is your price, is the giving the price is the output, but that the machine learning algorithm, via machine learning algorithm, your Ola application analyzes the data and gives you the price output, right? So now someone who creates this machine learning algorithm is called as a data scientist in the industry, right? You must be hearing about these words very often, right? Data analyst, data scientist, etc. So what does a data analyst do? We saw in the data analytics part of it, right? You are given a data set, you are given a problem statement. The job of the data analyst is to work on the problem statement, get the solutions from it, right? So that's the job of a data analyst. So what does the data scientist do? The data scientist job is to create a machine learning algorithm so that the machine will do all the work. The machine is going to learn from the data and performing the task, right? The machine is going to do the analysis. So this is the job of a data scientist in the industry. All right, let me give you more examples. Every day you are using Google Maps, I believe, right? Everybody is using Google Maps, and just look at it. You know, I wanted to go from Andheri to Bandra in Mumbai, and when I put on this, it gives me multiple options, right? I can go via Western Express Highway, or I can go via Western Express Highway and Linking Road, right? So now different timings it is showing, right? So how Google, and you see here, right, different, there is a best possible route has been shown to me. And if you remember this, you know, Google will not show you the least distance route. It will show you the least timing route. If you look at it here, right, this is 9.7 kilometers, wherein this is 12.4 kilometers, but you are reaching faster, right? So Google will show me the fastest route here, right? And if you look at it, it shows you the traffic as well. Like the blue is there, the traffic are not, it's free. The orange is mild traffic. And if you have red on it, it is a severe traffic jam, right? So now, how is Google Maps able to give me this data, right? And because, again, it works on the machine learning algorithm, wherein the machine learns from the data of two data. One is the past data of all the people who have gone in this route before. What is the average timing that has been taking, right, at this particular timing? Second is that Google also collects live data, right? Now we are going to start. Now, after 10 kilometers on your route, there is an accident and there is a congestion. that will be immediately shown on your Google Maps. And how is Google Maps able to do it? Because it learns from multiple Android users' data on the road, and it is giving you the best possible or the timings that has been perfect for you. Yeah. Right, so you can take, so basically machine learning algorithm, and you can see multiple things. Right now, let's talk about, you would have also seen this example in Amazon, right? You go and provide your, you wanted to search for something, right? In Amazon, let's say, JBL Flip. I wanted to buy a Bluetooth speaker. I went on Amazon, I searched for JBL Flip, and then wherever I go, Amazon's advertisements will chase me, right? I go to Facebook, there will be Amazon's advertisement. I go to Instagram, there will be Amazon's advertisement. I go to YouTube, there will be this speaker. This is basically comes in the machine learning algorithm. In fact, algorithm is recommendation algorithm, what we call it. And again, you can be learning those things in the machine learning sessions, right? So this is again another machine learning algorithm wherein if you are looking for a product, that product advertisements will be keep on chasing you wherever you go, that, right? And or till you search for another product. A very best example I can give you is Google search engine. Again, machine learning algorithm, right? I wanted to know, everybody was talking a few months back, right? When COVID cases were peaking, everybody was talking about this hydroxychloroquine is a good medicine for this, etc. I got so eager, what is it, hydroxychloroquine? So I went and searched in Google. And you know what? Google gave me 4.3 crore results. 4.3 crore results, right? Now you talk about it, even if there are 10 results in a page, that's about 43 lakhs pages of results. 43 lakhs pages. Now tell me when exactly went to 4th or 5th page in a Google search result. I haven't gone there for a very, very long time now, right? All my results, I get it on the very first page. Most of the times, very, very rarely I go to the second page, very rare, right? 4th or 5th page, I haven't gone for a very long time. So the same thing would have happened to you, right? Every day we search for so many things in Google, but we don't cross beyond second page, right? And how is Google able to do this? Right? There are 43 lakhs pages of results, but you are getting it on the very first page, right? That's because of your machine learning algorithm, where your Google search engine, which is a machine, consistently learns from the best results, right? The page ranking mechanisms, and provides you the best result that is possible on the very first page, so that your timing is saved. Right now, you might ask questions, right? Is machine learning good for me or bad for you? Remember this. Do you want to search for do you want your results on the very first page, or you wanted to search for 43 lakhs pages to find your best results? Machine learning is always helpful, right? That is the beauty of machine learning. Now, look at it, another example. You can talk about Gmail. You have a spam folder, right? Whenever a mail comes, what happens? Your Gmail classifies it. It's a algorithm which we call it in machine learning terms as classifier algorithm. All right. Again, how is it happening? It classifies whether an email goes to inbox or to a spam folder, right? So basically, how machine learning algorithm already said, it has been trained on to identify the keywords which are basically the junk keywords, right? You talk about cash prize winning, lottery winning, blah 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 stuff, etc., right? Automatically Gmail recognizes that this is a keyword related to spam, so it will put it under the spam folder, right? So this is how you go to just, everybody's Gmail, everybody must be a Gmail user, I believe, and you go to spam folder and see, you will not find any mail which has been wrongly classified as spam, right? That's the beauty of this algorithm, right? It's perfect, right? It works perfectly, and it takes a lot of headache from you, right? So that's why machine learning works in a beautiful way. Or the final example I can give you is that about the Netflix or your Amazon Prime or your YouTube, etc. They recommend videos to you. Again, a recommendation algorithm, right? They recommend videos to you. So how do they recommend videos to you? It consistently learns from your data, right? What are the movies that you're watching? What are the series that you're watching? What are the videos that you're watching, right? And are you watching it fully? Are you liking on it? Are you commenting on it? Are you rating on it? All those parameters are considered and taken into account, so that you will be getting your best recommendation from the platform, right? how many times did I have? I used to do this very often. I go to YouTube. I want to see a 5 minutes video. I will end up spending 2 hours to 3 hours in YouTube, right? Keep on watching the recommendation videos. Probably you would have also faced the same thing, right? YouTube or even Facebook does it, and Facebook videos is a premium feature today. Or you talk about the very infamous app which was got banned recently, right? Your TikTok, right? TikTok app, if you are there, you know, you would have used it, you will know that, right? It consistently recommends videos to you so that you never get out of the app, right? It keeps recommending what you like. So that's the beauty of machine learning, right? So why I'm telling you these examples, or like you talk about any application or any software today that's getting built today, there is a part of machine learning algorithm embedded to it, right? I've given you multiple examples. You pull out your smartphone, look at it and see. Take Facebook, for example, right? How Facebook is showing advertisements to you, machine learning. How Instagram is telling you whom to follow, machine learning. Your YouTube, your Gmail, your Google search engine, to every single application that you use on your smartphones or a daily life, right? Or softwares, etc. Right? You take Amazon. How is it suggesting products to you, right? It is recommending products to you. You open up your Amazon, you open up your spouse Amazon, totally different, right? Your parents Amazon, it is totally different, right? So all these comes under the machine learning algorithm, and that is why machine learning is such a common or a more famous things, or you know, or in much high demand today in the market because of these reasons. All right. So any questions, guys, so far on this machine learning? Have you understood a basic idea about it? Any questions before we step into deep learning? Okay. All right. I believe there's no questions. So we'll move to deep learning. All right. So I already showed you what is deep learning. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning. Okay. So what is deep learning is going to do? Deep learning is going to also learn from the data, perform a task. Right. Okay. So how's deep learning different, right? I told you one keyword. If you all remember that, the keyword is neural networks, right? So deep learning uses neural networks and performs the task, right? So let's look at it, what it is, right? Now, let me give you an example, okay? It's little thing, but hopefully you will be able to understand it, right? Now, you walk into a bank today. Most of the time you don't have to go to a bank, right? You want to withdraw money, you can pull it out from ATM, right? You want to deposit cash, you can put it in a cash deposit machine today. So why you have to go to bank? Only one reason is that you need to drop a check, right? And the problem is that, okay, you don't have to go to a bank, you can even drop it in an ATM, but it will take 2 days for your check to process. Everything else in the banking operation is immediate, right? You want to change your password, immediate. You want to transfer money, immediate, right? IMPS second, next second it will be transferred. But when you want to deposit a check, it's going to take 2 days for the checks to be processed, because manual intervention, they need to verify a lot of parameters and they have to process it. Correct. And that you need to deposit it before the clearing time, blah, blah, blah. A lot of issues are there. Now let us take up a project. Let's see that, okay, can we automate this? Can we say that, can we automate the check processing system so that you deposit in a machine, like a cash deposit machine, you have a check deposit machine, right? Next second, your account, it gets credited. Clear, right? So all you're doing is you got a check, go deposit in a machine, immediately next second it gets credited. Why should it take 2 days for a check to be cleared, right? Okay, how do we build this machine now? How do we build this system, right? So we are going to use deep learning. I'll come to it. So what is the problem statement here? What is the problem here? Basically, the machine has to learn 5 different parameters to process. All right. What are the parameters it has to process? All right. Number 1, it needs to process the date parameter. I'm marking it on your screen so that you will be able to understand it better, right? Okay. The second, it needs to look at the account number, right? It needs to look into the check number and amount, and then it has the 5th parameter as the signature part of it, right? So there are 5 parameters which needs to be verified, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 parameters. Okay, fine. Now if you look at it, right, you can easily verify the signature. Why? Because it is apple to apple, right? Already an image is there. All you need to check is if this image matches with that image, processing done. Image processing, it is done, right? So it's pretty easy to build it, right? Now, printed letters, again, it's all going to be printed in the same way. So it's very easy to cross verify the image with the existing number, or to read that number. It is easy because it is printed. I'll tell you where the challenge comes from. The actual challenge comes when you want to read a handwritten number, correct? Let us talk about this. For example, you take this, right? There is a 5 here, right? And there is a 5 here, right? And you talk about the top check you see here. There is a 5 here, right? And there is a 5 here. If you talk about it, all these are number 5, but each of them are written in a different way. Right? Now, can you tell that, you know, your 5 is right, my 5 is wrong? Nobody can say that, right? So everything is 5. This is also 5. This is also 5. My system needs to read all the 5s, right? So similarly, this is the challenge that comes in doing auto processing, check processing. Why? Because everybody writes in different ways, and you need to build a system to recognize all possible handwritings in that. Correct? So number recognition, that is one of the difficult process when it is handwritten, right? The printed one, no problem at all, right? Okay, let's see this here. Now, if I wanted to train my system to build it, right, to recognize a number, just take it for example 2, right? So you can see this. This is different, and different. All are 2. I cannot say that this is right, this is wrong. So if I have to build a deep learning system, I have to train my system to recognize all possible digits in different writing models. Correct? Yes or no? So all are basically 2. Similarly, you talk about 9, right? You can write it in any way. My system has to recognize it as 9. That is the biggest challenge when it comes to processing this check. You know why it is a big challenge in processing a check? Because one wrong number in the value, if your system is recognizing, let's take one single number wrongly, you are going to get a very different amount on your account. Correct? So that is why it is very sensitive when it comes to check processing, right? So how do we build a system to recognize handwritten numbers? Let's talk about it, right? Okay. So before that, we wanted to understand what is neural network. I already told you, right? Deep learning system uses neural networks. Just understand this part alone and you will be able to proceed further. Okay, so let's talk about it. What is a neural network? Remember, this neural network is nothing but a circle that holds a number. Okay, just for your easy remembrance, I'm putting it like this. It is a circle that holds a number. Okay, now what is that number is going to be? The number is going to be from 0 to 1. Always remember this. The number is going to be from 0 to 1. Okay, so now I wanted to let's talk about a value 9. Okay, now I wanted my system to recognize 9 as a number. One way of writing 9. I can write 9 in multiple ways. I'm talking about one way. Okay, so this is the 9. So I wanted to train my system to recognize this number 9. How do I train it? I'm going to use a neural network concept. Okay, so now if you look into it, whenever there's an image given to you, you split that into 28 by 28 pixels. Okay, so 28 by 28 is 784 pixels. So I split into 784 pixels, right? Each pixel is also called as a neuron. So neuron is nothing but a pixel. I told you a circle, there was a number, right? So there are 784 circles in this box. Okay, so there are 784 circles, right? Now, if you look at it, right, there is a circle here. This is the important part. Just listen carefully. There is a circle here on the corner. Okay, or it could be this or this, etc. Right? Now, there is no shade of 9 passing on this circle. You all agree? 9 is here, right? There is no shade of 9 passing on the corner circles, right? It could be this or this or this, etc. Right? So these circles are called as zero circles or dark circles, right? Or black neurons. Basically, the value of the black neuron is what? 0. Because they're dark, they are black neurons. no shade of 9 is falling on that. Okay, now on the other side, if you look at this value, right, you have seen this, right? Now, the shade of 9 is falling entirely on these neurons, right? You can see this, right? All these neurons, if you see, the shade of 9 is falling on it. These are called white neurons, are going to have a value of 1. I told you 1 is a black neuron, right? Which there is no shade of 9. That is called, the value is going to be 0. The other is the opposite side, where it is called as a white neuron, where the entire shade of 9 is falling on it, right? That is called as a white neuron. The value of that is going to be 1, right? So I told you the entire thing value is going to be between 0 to 1, right? So you talk about this circle. For example, take this circle, right? Okay. Sorry for messing it up, right? Okay. Table text, right? Okay. Talk about this circle, right? Or you talk about this circle. Talk about this circle. These are not the gray circles, where the entire 9, it's not falling on it, but the shade is falling on it, correct? So that are called as grayscale circles, right? Or gray circles. Their value will be between anywhere between 0 to 1. Your 0 is your black neuron. 1 is your white neuron, right? Anything in between this, where the shade of white is falling, is called as a gray neuron. And the value will be 0.1 or 0.2 or 0.3, depends on the shade that is falling. You are able to get it, guys, right? Now, for example, you take this, where the shade is very less, right? Now, this could be 0.1 or 0.2, right? Now, talk about this, where the shade is very high, right? Now, this could be 0.8. Right, or 0.9, etc. So this is how neurons are represented in a neural network. Okay, you are clear? Now what do we do? Basically, we are talking about neural networks. We talked about what is neurons, right? Now what is neural network? Connection of all these neurons is called as a neural network. So we are going to create layers. Okay, how is it created? Just look at it, right? So all your 784 pixels or 784 neurons, that is, this is this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this. 28 is there into 28. That 784 neurons are there, correct? In this entire box. Clear? This 784 neurons will form the first layer of my neural network. So this is my first layer, which is called as input layer. Remember this, each of these circles are going to have a value between 0 to 1. Agreed? And this forms my input layer. From this input layer, right, I will do coding and the messages are being passed on to the next layer. And this middle layer is called as hidden layers, right? Hidden layers. Remember this, in this concept, in this picture, I mentioned 2 hidden layers, right? This is 1, this is 2. Similarly, depends on the complication of your algorithm. The number of hidden layers can be any number. It can be 5, 10, 15, 20 immaterial. Right? Remember this, depends on the complexity of your algorithm. Minimum is 2. Similarly, any number can be there of hidden layers, right? Now, all the processing happens in this hidden layers only. Right, all your processing happens. Again, remember this, each circle is going to have a value between 0 to 1. The circle value will change, depends on your processing. And then finally, your hidden layers will pass on the output value to the output layer. So now if your machine has trained it correctly, your output value will be what? In this case, it will be 9, correct? Because you are training the system to recognize 9. Right, so from input layer, it passed on to the hidden layer, and your output layer should give value output as 9. You understand this, guys? So basically, neural network comprises of 3 layers: input layer, hidden layer, and output layer. Right? So all the processing, algorithm processing happens between these 3 layers, and you get an output. Okay. So let me give an example. Right now, for example, you wanted to train 2. Again, there are multiple ways of writing 2. Correct? So what do? You split this into 28 by 28 pixels, right? So you have 784 pixels here, and they form the input layer. From input layer, what happens? Your information gets passed down to your hidden layers, and then from hidden layers you go to the output layer. Can you see this? In output layer there is a gray value on 2 because it is recognizing it as 2, right? So wherever the highest probability value is coming in, that will be your output value. Clear? This is how you need to train multiple handwritten numbers. Each handwritten number you need to train it in this way. Remember one thing, in a deep learning algorithm, it is very difficult and it will take long time to train your system, right? For a deep learning algorithm, it really takes long time. When I say time, it can even be months. You might be working on an algorithm for 10 months or even 8 months, right? To train the system. But once it is trained, you have a very good project on your hand, right? Because it's going to work beautifully, right? Let me give you another example with a real-time thing, right? Let's talk about it, right? Everybody would have crossed a traffic signal, every one of you, right? And you will be seeing what, when you're crossing a traffic signal, there will be a timer on the signal, right? So the timer is going to go from 80 seconds, 100 seconds, 120 seconds, etc. Right? You all have seen the timer. How it is optimized on a real time? Have anybody thought about it, right? How did they decide that it has to be 100 seconds here, 120 seconds there, and 80 seconds here, etc.? How did they come to this optimization? Correct? So ideally what they do in real time, they put 2 people in a signal to collect the data of all the vehicles crossing by, right? And once they collect the data, the collection will happen for 1 week, 10 days, etc. Once the data collection happens, they will give the data to a statistician, and the statistician will optimize the timer accordingly. This is how it works actually, right? Now, what is the problem in this? The problem, there are 2 problems. One, you put 2 people on a signal to do all the data collection, your data may not be accurate, correct? Because human beings are prone to errors, so your data is not going to be accurate. Second issue is that when you do this for one signal, let's talk about a city like Bangalore, where there are, like, you know, hundreds of signals, or Mumbai or Delhi, etc., right? Now, you cannot do this every time, right? That's exactly what's happening. You finish in one signal, then they put 2 more people in the second signal, collect the data, optimize this signal time, right? It's a painstaking process, right? You do any change in the road diversion, you need to do this all over again, right? So how do we solve this problem using deep learning system, right? So I'll just give you the example. I will give you the model of solving it. Any questions, please ask it. Okay. So what do I do first? I put up a camera on the signal, right? Most of the signals have a CCTV camera, right? So I'm going to put up a camera on the signal to collect all the data input, right? And then what do? I will train my model using artificial neural networks, right? So what do I train for? I will train my model parallelly to recognize the vehicles based on the images, right? All I want is what? I wanted my system to recognize whether it's a car or a bike or a bus or a truck, right? That is enough for me, right? I don't want my system to recognize whether my car is Maruti Swift or Hyundai i20. No, that is not required. All it has to do is whether it's a car or a truck. How do I do that? I can train by using height by width ratio as one parameter. For example, I'm just giving you an example, right? Now, for example, what is height by width ratio of a car is not, it's going to be different from a height h by w of a truck or a bus, correct? So based on that, we will be able to classify these vehicles into a truck or a car or a bicycle or a two-wheeler, etc. Correct? Now, once I do that, once I do the training, remember this training is going to take a lot of time. That's what I told you, right? It's going to take months. You will do a lot of training to recognize it to be a car or a bus or a bicycle, etc. Right? Once I do the training, what do I do next? I do the testing. I will pass on random pictures to my model, and I will understand whether my model is able to do the output perfectly, right? Now, if my model is able to perform it to 95% accuracy, that's good enough for me, right? Because this is not a live light issue or something, right? All you're going to do is just 5 seconds or 10 seconds is going to be different, right? So if it is going to be 95% accuracy, then what I will do, I will bring the data from this camera feed and I will pass it on to the solution, to my model, which I have trained. Now, from the video image, my model will be able to recognize whenever there is a car is passing on, it will add one value to the car. Whenever a bus is crossing on, it will add one value to the bus, etc. You understand this, right? So basically what you are doing, first, you are training your model to recognize the images of the vehicles from the images, right? The car, bus, etc. Next, you are testing it out. With multiple sample images, you are testing your model whether it is working perfectly or not. Once you do that, you pass on the actual data, your system is going to work. Now, just think about the problems we had. We had two problems. Manually doing it, we had two problems. What is the first problem? Number one, we had accuracy issue with the data. That has been rectified in this because you're collecting the data from a camera feed, which is going to be 100% accurate data. You are not going to miss a car or a bus, anything, right? The second issue is what? The scalability part of it. Right now, I got it in one signal. Remember this, if I build this model, I can implement this in any signal across the country. It can be, I can put it in Kashmir also, I can put it in Kerala also, right? Because everywhere Maruti Swift is Maruti Swift only, Innova is Innova only, bus is bus only. You understand this, right? So this is how we solve some real-time problems using deep learning algorithms, right? I saw one of our student did a project to recognize whether a two-wheeler rider is wearing a helmet or not using camera feed. Simple, right? So what he did, he collected the data from the camera, it will see, and he just created a model to say this is a head with a helmet, this is without helmet. Now, whenever it is identifying a rider without a helmet, it will take a snapshot of the vehicle, send it to the traffic control group. Automatically, challan will be created, passed on to the rider, right? Works between, you don't want manual intervention at all, right? You don't want a traffic police to stand there and catch these people who are not wearing helmets. It can be done by a deep learning system. And when it is done in one signal, trust me, you can implement that in any signal across the country. What is wrong? So this is how we solve some real-time problems using deep learning technology, right? Now, I give you another example. You all will be having some black and white photos with you, right? Now, what do we do now? Basically, we can scan it and keep it. Normally, I do that because it will lose the texture, it will lose the color, I might lose it, etc. It might fade away, right? So we scan it and keep a digital copy of it. The next process is that, okay, if you scan it and digitalize it, it doesn't have any light to it, right? Now, can we bring some color to it, right? Can I make it into a color picture? What do? I need to take this to Photoshop, right? I need to download this to Photoshop, and then I need to apply, manually pick colors for each of the objects in this, right? Now, this is a cloud, the sky, this is a cloud, mountain with snow, without snow, trees, grass. I need to manually pick colors and apply on that. Easily, it will take me 30 minutes if I'm good in Photoshop, right? Now, when I do this for one photo, remember this, what you will do is you will bring me 100 photos. So it's going to be 30 minutes into 100 photos I need to do, right? So it's going to be 30 minutes into 100 times, right? So how do I solve this problem using our deep learning technology? Same thing, right? What do? You train your model to recognize the objects in the image. Correct. So if you are, again, training is not going to be easy. It's going to take a long time, right? It's going to take even months. But when I do that, what are you doing? You are making the system model to identify the objects, right? You know, this is sky, this is clouds, etc., etc. Once it does that, automatically the color is a default option, right? Look at these images. All these images are colored using deep learning algorithm, right? Just compare this photo with this photo, right? Looks so beautiful. It's all natural, right? You see the sky, clouds, mountain, etc. Completely done by a deep learning algorithm. What is the advantage of doing it? You create one algorithm like this, and then you create 100, no 1,000 photos also. It's not going to take 30 minutes into 1,000. It's only going to take 1 minute for bringing all the 1,000 photos together, correct? Because it can do the coloring within a fraction of a second once one is done, right? So you also have you would have come across an application called Google Translate, right? All you do is a deep learning application. What does it do? You are going for some foreign countries or a different state where you do not know the language, right? But you look at it board, everywhere it's in native language, right? You go to China, you go to Japan, you go to some of the European countries, you have this problem. You really do not, you don't know Chinese, you cannot read any of the signboards over there, right? You cannot read the signages on the buses or on the metros, etc. So what do? You pull out your phone, you open up your Google Translate application, you just show to that, automatically it will translate that sign to English. Beautiful, correct? So how does it work? A deep learning algorithm, right? So similarly, your deep learning algorithms can be applied or used in multiple areas, right? So there are multiple use cases, multiple problems across different industries that can be solved using deep learning algorithms. All right. Okay. So to just give a refresher about what we saw today, to recollect it, what is machine learning? Basically, it enables machines to take decisions based on the data. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning. That's the same thing. But remember, there's with help of neural networks. We saw what is neural networks, right? Same way how we do the train the number 9, you're going to train to identify a car or a bicycle or whatever it is, right? Or a different language for that matter. Machine learning needs only small amount of data, right? And wherein your deep learning needs a large amount of data to train, right? And machine learning works on low-end systems, absolutely fine, no issue with that. When it comes to deep learning, it needs some high-end systems, right? Normally, we use something called as GPUs. I'm not sure you would have been aware of it. Graphical processing unit, right? Here we use CPUs, right? Your central processing unit. But for deep learning systems, for most of the algorithms, we go and use GPUs. That's the only issue with that, right? And in machine learning, most of the features needs to be identified earlier and coded. But when it comes to deep learning, there is something called as you'll be learning unsupervised learning, wherein the machine learns from the features on its own and applies it to the data as well. Okay, so these are some of the differentiation between a machine learning and a deep learning systems, right? Okay, so now you got a fair bit of idea about analytics. You got a fair bit of idea about what is machine learning and deep learning. Now coming to the tools, right? So what are the tools that is used, or what are the tools that are applied in this? So trust me, remember this, the very fundamental to all this, anything in data science is what we call it as statistics. Statistics is the fundamentals of data science. And in my opinion, if anybody who wanted to get into data science should be learning statistics all over again, right? Or they need to be good in statistics. So once you are there, then you have some more tools, which is like not a mandatory, but still it's good to have. I will suggest you to learn Excel or Google Sheet. When I talk about Excel, we call normally advanced Excel, right? All these things you can do that in Excel itself. Most of the analysis you can do in Excel itself. You don't even need a Python or a R programming at that level, right? And then you have a database tool. My suggestion personally would be to learn MySQL, right? Which is very commonly used in the industry today. And then comes the important part of it, which is the programming tools. Today, most commonly used programming tools are R and Python, right? In case you are learning both, it is well and good, right? And if you wanted to pick any one only, I would say Python is the most popular. But again, if you learn both, 90% of the industry is using any one of these tools, right? And finally, when it comes to data visualization, you have two major tools in the industry, Power BI and Tableau, right? Most are again both are commonly used tools. and both of knowledge or learning both will definitely help. Okay, right. So any questions here? I have completed before I step into a final thing about data science club, what we do at Imarticus. Any questions here? I can take it happily. Any questions? Please put it on the question and answer box. I can. Okay. I'll give a small introduction about Data Science Club, which is Imarticus initiative, as there are people across different colleges and who's getting an introduction on the data science. So basically what we do at Data Science Club, we are setting up a club for data science exclusively in different colleges across the country, right? We have already set it up with about 50 plus institutions across the country, and we are having an official launch in another week's time. And basically, this is to inspire, nurture, and assist students in the data science domain in order to facilitate the knowledge sharing, research projects, and career enhancements towards the data science industry. Also, we would like to share and exchange ideas, information among the club members across the country. It will be a connect across the country, and also to provide the latest development in data science industry to the academia as well, right? So these are the some of the vision and mission in setting up this data science club in different colleges. And on the initial phase one, we are looking at setting it up in 100 plus colleges only, and depends on the activities and stuff. From next year, probably we might be looking to add few more institutions to this list, right? So to begin with, we have added few prominent industry people as board of advisors from different locations, right? Arul from Chennai, Vikram from Bangalore, Shikha from Delhi, Ravi from Mumbai, etc. So different people, Pune, different parts of the country, all are mentors, board of advisors. They will be mentoring the students in the data science club. They will be providing a lot of information as well as knowledge sharing sessions with the students as well. And outside this, what are the benefits that the data science club member gets? One is we do regular industry webinars and guest lectures. Ideally, we are doing it on a monthly basis, right, from Indian speakers as well as international speakers. The students or members of the data science club get access to all these webinars and the students can be participating in all these webinars. There will be national level hackathons where we are conducting 2 national level hackathons in this, and the students of the membership colleges can participate in these hackathons, and they will be able to get certifications on that. We are also doing a lot of workshops and certifications, which are 2 days, 3 days kind of workshops on different topics of data science, including topics like Python for data science, data visualization using Tableaus, and multiple 12 to 15 topics have been identified. These are 2 days to 3 days workshops which are being conducted, right? And students and faculties can participate in these workshops and get certified as well. Finally, we are also doing faculty development programs, and we are also conducting giving placement opportunities to the students who are performing well in the activities which is being conducted by the data science club as well, right? So in case if any one of your college is not already part of the data science club and you would like to be part of it, you can get the registration link. We will be sharing it on the chat box, and you can fill up the application form, and we will qualify it, and we will see if it's eligible. We will be coming back to you on that. And trust me, at all of this comes at no cost to the college or to the student. So that's the important part of the data science club. Absolutely no cost involved in running any of these activities for your college or for your students. All right. So this is basically the process. So kindly fill up the application forms, and then we will be signing MOUs with you going forward on that. All right. So thank you so much. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for taking your time out and joining for this very first session. If you have any questions, please put it out on the question and answer box. I am happy to take it for you. This is one question which is spell the name of second visualization tool. It is called Tableau, Tableau, Tableau. All right, and any other questions, guys? Please put it out. I'm happy to take it. Any questions? Please put it on the chat box. Okay, there's a question. Is there any research challenges on face recognition in machine learning? There is no research challenge as such. Face recognition is in fact a very, very common application tool which is already existing. Santosh Kumar, any charges for Data Science Club membership? No, sir, no cost at all, right? It is, if we sign it with the colleges and it's open to all the students of the colleges. Gomati Shankar has asked, heart problems predictions comes under ML or DL. If you're going to use it via data part of it, right? The heart problem prediction can be done via two models. One is that you can do it via data part of it, right? If it's going to be like a fitness tracker, getting data, etc., right? So that comes under ML. If you are going to go via images like an ECG type of an image and you wanted to understand, etc., then it goes via DL concept. Okay. Mary Jasmine, can we apply deep learning on numerical weather data? Yes, very much possible. You can do that. Any other questions? Please put it out on the chat box. I'm sure this is an introductory session and you are going to have a lot of inputs coming towards you in the next 4 days. So any questions on the introduction or the basics, I'm happy to take it.
Audience, do you have any other questions? I think there is no question, sir. Thank you for your wonderful session. We had very basic introduction machine learning, about the machine learning and deep learning, which are nicely you relate with how it is applied on real-time experience, real-time environment like banking sector and online application. Really very thank you, sir. And patiently you answered all the audience questions. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thanks everybody for participating in this. Thank you so much. Stay home and stay safe and happy learning for the next 4 days as well. Thank you so much.
Audience, you have one information. Tomorrow session link will be posted by Ambed sir in WhatsApp group. Thank you for your session.